That's so full of dogs. We put in a baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs.
Bam! Welcome to what? It's the opening day of the 24 season, people. Welcome to another episode of Giants Rush, where we talk about Giants football 52 weeks of the year. And like I said, today's like opening day. Super Bowl's over. The NFL got their script written, and it worked out the way they wanted it to go. Well, that's what some of you think anyway. Not as much Taylor Swift as some of you had bet on, so I'm sure you guys made some money there. And we've got Paul Datino here. We got Chris and Alex here. We're going to get right into the offseason. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff because, you know, when we bring Paul on, there's nobody knows the Giants better than Paul. So I actually have a couple of you guys been pinging me all day about questions. We'll ask Paul about draft stuff, combine stuff. So let's bring in the guys. I got Alex all the way from Houston, Texas. What's up, dude?
What's going on, man? Good to be back.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, Super Bowl's over. It's done.
Yeah. We're undefeated, though. Haven't lost a game in 2024.
Dang right we haven't. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, right now, I feel good. We're in first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Heck yeah, man. First place feels good. Like, I'm almost at the point where I'm like cocky. I'm like, yeah, look at us.
I don't want to get that far yet, but yeah.
No,
feeling good so far. Feeling good.
That's just me in my old age. You know what I mean? I'm feeling good about it, right? I'm optimistic. Let's bring in Chris. Chris is up. There you go.
Craig, Alex.
By the way, Chris, your microphone sounds so good now. I don't even know what to do. Like, it's just, you're on point.
Well, thank you for that $3 raise. You know that it was able for me to buy that microphone. Awesome.
That's what I got to do, right? And of course, the star of the hour, which he's always kind enough to hang out with us a couple times. You know, then I bother him during the stadium. I always say, you know, hi to Paul, constant professional inside. And I don't know how we're lucky enough to hang out with him, but he does. So we appreciate it. Paul, what's up?
Good to see you guys, and I love the fact that 0-0 has got you jacked up. But
yeah,
hey, why not? Right? It's
been a long year.
First place, baby, first place, and that's going to last for a couple months. So this is good, right? Because we can hate the off season, but right now, off season's good for us, right? Undefeated.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. I know we talk a little football during the year when I see you at the stadium. Now the season's over. Super Bowl's over, right? We're on to 24. And the very first thing I thought of this morning when I woke up was, and maybe I'm hardwired this way, Paul, is I'm going to read you a couple names. 49ers, Sam Darnold, Feliciano, Juan Jennings, the receiver, Chase Young, the O-lineman Matt Pryor, linebacker Demetrius Flanagan Flowers. On the Chiefs side, Chris Jones, our good friend Richie James, McCole Hardman, Jarius Sneed, I'm a big fan, Mike Edwards, Donovan Smith, Drew Tranquil, Clyde Hare, Blaine Gabbert. A lot of free agents coming out of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, now again, I know it's early, but like, what do you think? Are any of these guys going to be in the mix? Is there any conversations being had behind the scene like, hey, we need to bring in some of these guys because they know how to win?
Well, I'll give you my viewpoint on this, Craig, but I can't speak for Joe Shane because, quite frankly, he's been so busy with the All-Star games. And now, you know, they got a little bit of time to breathe as they get ready for free agency and everything else that's going to be happening with the combine and obviously the draft. So I have not had any conversations with Joe recently. And even if I did, I couldn't exactly give that up to you.
I got it.
But here's what I will say. as somebody who understands this roster extremely well, I think there's one guy on each of these Super Bowl teams that would certainly interest me, and I would like to see them investigated. Cleveland Farrell, the defensive lineman from the 49ers, is a former first-round pick of the Raiders, who I thought several years ago would be a really good 4-3 defensive end in this league, and one who is really good at setting the edge and stopping the run. He's not as much of a pass rusher as a lot of people would like to see, and that's why the Raiders people termed him a bust, because when you draft him high in the first round, you're expecting double-digit sacks.
Yeah.
But that's not his game, okay? So he obviously got away and went to the 49ers, fought injury toward the end of the season. But he is a solid, really good, solid run-stopping defensive end. And I think we all know that the Giants would like to improve their defense against the run. And we know that, quite frankly, they're a little thin right now on the depth chart along the defensive line. So I think that Farrell would be a very economically friendly player who's a young veteran who probably still has some upside with him. And, if you're talking about a guy who's been on a team that's gone far, well, the guy, I know he was hurt, so he didn't get in the game. But this is a guy who's been on a Super Bowl team, or at least a Super Bowl playing team, if not winning, obviously. They didn't win. So that would be a gentleman on San Francisco that I would certainly like to put a spotlight on.
Okay.
I think that Nick Allegretti, the offensive lineman from the Chiefs, would be another guy that I personally would put a spotlight on. And again, I want to stress to you, Craig, and fellas, I think the Giants are probably only going to have about $25 million salary cap money by the time it's all said and done.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, they're at 22 now.
Spend.
Right? They're at 20. They're at 22 now, so they're going to have to do some kind of restructuring on somewhere to get that extra $3 million.
They could tweak a few things here and there. And we don't know exactly what the number is yet. Remember, there's only estimates.
Yeah, that's true. Yep,
we
that's
don't
a good
have
point.
a hard number yet.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be somewhere in that vicinity, which means you're not going to be able to spend look, I'm not a big Chase Young fan anyway, to be honest. He's been hurt too much and he doesn't play the run. So he's going to, as a pass rusher, though, he's going to command big, big money. You're not going to blow, the bulk of your cap money on going after a guy like that.
I agree.
So what I do when I'm looking at the free agency list and I'm saying, okay, what are the three biggest needs that must be addressed? Well, the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, and you really could use another really good wide receiver.
Yep.
Now, I think those are the three most important needs for the Giants as they try to take the next step. So I say to myself, all right, well, given the money you'd have to pay for a primo defensive lineman or a primo offensive lineman, or for that matter, a primo wide receiver, you're going to break the bank. So you're going to have to try to be a little economical here. So I'm looking at those two guys from the Super Bowl that we just had yesterday as young veterans who probably would not break the bank, who have started in this league before and put forth a pretty decent, solid resume, who may just, maybe they'd like a change of scenery. Maybe they'd like a better chance to blossom and further their careers with a team that might be able to use them more. Those would be two names that I would be interested in finding out more about.
And I know Chris and I were talking about it, earlier or late last week, is that there's an extensive list here, Paul, of players. I mean, between the two teams, there's got to be 20 guys, that are going to be free agents. And as you know, you can't sign them all. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be some availability. Like, for instance, when you look at the Chiefs, I mean, between Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, and then on the other side, Jennings and Young, like these are primetime starters. There's no way, as you said, and Young, who I kind of look at like he's more of a Clowney kind of a player. He is just a pass rusher, right? So he might not be on the Giants target list, but Chris, is there not a long list of guys here? Like, there's no way they can sign all these guys. You know, you win the Super Bowl, you usually lose some guys, but this list is extensive.
I think Paul may back me up on this. I think in general, you're looking at like a 30% turnover on most teams, right, Paul, in terms of the roster?
You absolutely can. And obviously each team's individual cap will adjust that number because you've got to deal with the guys you currently have who may have balloons. For example, Mahomes. Mahomes' numbers are ridiculous. So now he's already told the Chiefs he's willing to redo his deal to try to create some room for them. So yeah, a lot of times you're talking between 20 and 30% of a roster overturn. Sure.
Alex, any of these guys jump out at you that you're like, hey, that's a guy that's on the target list? Is there any one of these guys that jump out at you?
I mean, like L'Jarius Sneed, I feel like is unrealistic. That's probably not going to happen. Chris Jones, we can rule that out. That's not going to happen. Ray McLeod, maybe if you wanted to add some receiver depth, but I feel like there's other guys that are maybe better options out there that we can go with. Somebody that I kind of looked at, I don't know what his price range would be, but if they do move on from Saquon, maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you could try and do an RBC kind of thing going in there because I feel like he's been injury prone, but when he's on, I feel like. I don't know. I just feel like he could go back to his LSU days, and I still kind of believe in that, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But like, you could maybe get him significantly cheaper than Saquon, and maybe put him with two other backs or something like that, and see what we could get out of that.
Man, you're already got me slotted in for like a 4 running back system here. You're killing
them all. You have to prepare for everybody. You can't prepare for just one.
Paul, I've been harping all like for the last month on. If they were, and we could talk about that in a second, but if we were going to bring Barkley back, like, why not go in? Like, we did the numbers. There were 5 of 7 playoff teams that had primetime fullbacks. Okay, Tampa, Packers, the Niners. Why can't we have a fullback? Like, it's almost like we're not allowed to play in that space. Why can't we have a fullback? That would be great for Saquon. Why can't they put a fullback on the field?
You're singing my song.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that song's an oldie but goodie. That's the problem. You have an offensive philosophy with that Kafka and Dable have that basically features so many of the 3 wides and so many of the double tight end sets that they just don't believe in taking a spot for a pure fullback. Look. Here's the problem for me, Craig. It's a personal thing. All right. I look at the Giants of yesteryear, and they had Maurice Carthon. They had Madison Hedgecock. They had Jim Finn.
Charles Way.
You know, they had guys, Charles Way. Yes. They had really good fullbacks on this team over the years. And by the way, went to Super Bowls with fullbacks on the team.
Hinoski.
Yeah. Henry Hinoski. The Hino. Absolutely. All right, Hino. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So I'm partial to fullbacks. Okay. I'm not anybody who knows me and who's listened to BBKL knows I'm partial to fullbacks. I think there should be room for a fullback on the roster. I mean, even Greg Comello back in the 2000 season was a fullback on this team, helped him get to a Super Bowl.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
I mean, I think there's value. If the guy is a dominant blocker and has good enough hands that he can catch out of the backfield, well, there's room for him on my roster. But it's quite clear that the last few Giants coaching regimes did not believe in a fullback. It's a philosophical thing, and that's just the way it is. So I accept it. I mean, it wouldn't be my choice, but I accept it.
You know, it's interesting, Paul, when you look at the roster and guys like Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown, who don't get on the field on defense at all. They primarily play special teams. But if you can take, like you said, that athletic fullback who can contribute on special teams on all the return teams and punt teams, and now you have him available as a fullback. So I just think, we've done it with Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin. Those guys don't get on the field. I feel like we would utilize a fullback even more, especially in the short yardage, and a guy that can come out of the backfield.
I'd very much like to see that, but it just doesn't seem to be in the cards. And this is now for a while. You guys know this.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a few coaching regimes now that just decided a fullback was not going to be here.
there was that one brief stint with Eli Penny, and I'm not even sure he was like a.
He's not. He was a tween.
No.
He wasn't a real
Wasn't
fullback.
Really
Yeah.
a fullback.
As a running back
And
playing
what-
fullback.
Exactly, running back playing fullback. Great point, Alex. And you know what's interesting? Like I said, in a copycat league, I would think that they would look. Wow, 5 of 7 playoff teams had a fullback. Like I would think that maybe the light bulb would go off and be like, hey, maybe we've turned the corner here on thinking that fullbacks don't have any value. And we're seeing them on playoff teams. We're not seeing them on 2 and 15 teams. We're seeing them on playoff and Super Bowl teams.
Well, I think besides the philosophical problem that you run into with a lot of today's coaches, the other issue is that because the college game has also developed into a lot of 7-on-7 and spreads and all that other stuff as kids are coming up through the systems, I don't think that you've got a lot of fullbacks, real pure fullbacks, who are going to be capable of playing at the NFL level. I don't think you've seen a lot of those guys groomed and actually, cultivated. It's look, for years. I remember years ago, a scout said to me, we got a big problem with tight ends in this league. Now, we don't today. Today, the cycle has turned over again.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of good tight ends in the NFL. But
Great
some years ago, if you remember, 10, 15 years ago, there weren't that many really good tight ends in the league. And what guys would tell me is we went through a stretch of time where guys were going to college and they wanted to play power forward in basketball. And they'd rather do that than become a tight end in football. And guys were pushing that, and they were getting scholarships to play hoops and go to the NCAA tournament and all that other stuff. And so it was becoming harder and harder to find guys who were coming up through the ranks who were going to be quality tight ends. That's changed now because the tide always goes in and comes out. That's just the way it is.
Guys like Gronkowski made it sexy again to play tight end, right? Or maybe even like a Tony Gonzalez. Like, some of these guys made it sexy to play tight end again, right?
Well, for a while, remember, you had him, you had Gates, you had Shockey there for a little while, but the truth
Jason
of the matter
Witten.
is, Witten, of course, always. Witten's probably still playing somewhere, that guy. But the point is, most of this stuff just goes around and around and around, and it will be revisited again, much like the fullbacks, Craig. Look, just a few years ago, there were only 7 teams that had a fullback in the NFL. And now we're up to like half of them.
Yeah.
Okay?
And by the way, they're all good. And they're all good teams that have fullbacks, by the way.
Yeah.
Like
well, and here's the thing. As much as the NFL became a passing league, and I call it, video game football. That's what I call it. As much as it did, about 6 years ago, you noticed that the majority of playoff teams started to become teams that had more balance and could run the football. And the tide started to turn a little bit. And you started to see that, okay, you know what? You just can't be a pass-happy team anymore. Most of the playoff teams started to rely more and more on the run. And that's where we're at right now. You don't see the quarterback throwing for, 5,000 yards and 45 touchdowns, on all the playoff teams anymore. You see teams that have a run game.
Yeah, and a mobile QB.
Well, it certainly helps.
Yeah,
I'm more for the escapable QB, not the mobile QB. There's a big difference to me.
Well, Lamar's mobile, but he's not throwing for 5,000 yards. I get that. But anyway, Chris, check this out. Cold is still killing me. There's like 90 guys in here killing me about the fullbacks. See, Craig won't let the fullback dream die. No, I won't, because the offensive line is so bad. Someone's got to block for him.
Look, just remember something to all you folks out there who are giving you a hard time. Just remember something, okay? When you have all of the blitz packages and all the slicing and the stunting that's going on in today's game, and you see how much difficulty the Giants' offensive line has had in picking those guys up, if you want to run against that style of defense, they're going to run blitz you, and they're going to hit Barkley 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, as they have many times in the last 3 years. So if you've got a fullback in front of him, You say, okay, you're leading him into the hole. Saquon, follow that guy's behind right through. And it can be part of the remedy, but you have to make room on the roster for a fullback.
So Paul, you know what that tells me? It's like fool's gold. They come out of training camp and they really believe in the offensive line for the last 10 years. Because what you're saying is, at some point, you think the coaches would be in a room and say, you know what, this offensive line isn't very good. Let's entertain the idea of adding a fullback because this offensive line is not going to be able to do the job. So that's what amazing. For so many years, we've been dealing with the same situation. But then when you look at the history of the Giants, Tiki Barber and all these championship teams, they've always had a fullback. What's the identity of this team? And I think right now it probably is the running game.
See, here's the thing now. You make a great point, but here's why it gets cloudy. Because every offseason, the Giants address the offensive line. They draft guys in the first or the second or the third round. They sign free agents. They think they're going to have guys healthy. So now all offseason, you construct your playbook. And you say, this is what we're going to want to do. And then all of a sudden, what happens in training camp? Guys start dropping like flies. The season starts, more guys drop like flies. And all of a sudden, you find out that the offensive line that you planned to have that was going to be functional is no longer functional. And now it's too late because you went and built your playbook back in March. So now how do you say we're going to go philosophically back to using, we're going to go grab a fullback now? It's too late at that point.
Yeah.
When you look at the season this year, it really does we had all of those. All right, we got the offensive line fixed. And one blocked field goal against the Cowboys in the very first game of the year. Andrew Thomas goes down with that injury, and it does just completely derail everything. That was when it all went south.
Yeah, it was
in the first quarter of game one.
Dynamite under the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Boom. And that was it. It just really and it didn't help, right? It didn't help that just a few games later, you got JMS was banged up. It didn't help that you had to worry about Azudu and McKeithen and Neal played hurt most of the whole season. Okay, he played hurt almost the whole season. I mean, it just like a domino effect. The entire line just was banged up. And what do you
come in and get hurt?
Seriously, you're going to pick up a fullback off the street? That's not going to help you at that point.
Yeah.
Not to mention that most of your playbook is for three wides.
And we're definitely this. I'm going to put a bow on it because we're talking 2003. Remember it's 2024. We're in first place.
We have to learn from the past.
Exactly. So this is the last thing I'm going to say about 2023. Because again, I think Chris, right before you jumped on, me and Alex were saying this feels good. We're in first place right now. Okay, we have no losses. We're moving in that direction. But to put a bow on 23, some of the issues still turn back the fact that guys like Pert and guys like Lemieux are clogging up roster spots and they're never on the field. Right? Yeah, you're literally saying these guys need to come back year after year after year, and they just don't play. So from an evaluation point, whoever's job it is, Bobby Johnson, whoever it is, somebody's giving somebody bad advice because we're going to the well 3 years in a row on some of these guys. And look, I'm sure they're great guys. I'm sure I'd love to have a beer with them. But if they're not able to play, they're not helping the team. So
yeah, and not when you put a guard at tackle. When Matt Pert's your guy all training camp, and then he doesn't play tackle.
Or Azudu.
That's what I mean. Azudu's put there. Yeah, right.
You said Pert.
Guys,
going in
problem, right?
for Pert.
This is the big problem the Giants have right now. They have to address the offensive line. We all know that. Somehow, some way, they have to address it. The issue is this. How do any of us truly know? Now, Lemieux's an unrestricted free agent. He's been hurt so many times. I don't think it's likely that he'll be back. Okay? But here's the thing. You got draft capital invested in Azudu, who you thought was going to be part of your future. Draft capital in McKeithen, who you also thought was going to be part of your future. Both of those guys are hurt. Neal was supposed to be your starting right tackle. He's been hurt. Pert was supposed to be your swing tackle. He's hurt. How do you know what these four guys are? You don't. You haven't seen enough of them. And on top of that, right, Ben Bredesen is an unrestricted free agent. So the guy who's been very important on the interior of the line as a versatile guy who's been able to plug in and stopgap wherever you needed him, he may not be back because he's a free agent. So the Giants have a ton of decisions to make on that line. And the problem is you can't fix it really in free agency unless you just sign one guy. You might be able to sign one guard at a somewhat decent price, but you're not going to be able to afford anybody else. Mm-hmm. It's either going to have to come from internally with these guys who get healthy, and Carmen Brasillo, the new offensive line coach, is going to have to make that evaluation and then try to coach them up, or you're going to have to draft somebody. Now, here's the question I have for all three of you, and I'm going to bail out after this. My question is this. If you believe that Evan Neal can still be the starting right tackle, I don't see how you can take the number 6 pick, no matter how good that alt is. I don't think you can take that pick there if you believe that Evan Neal is going to be your starting right tackle for the next 6 or 7 years. I don't think you can do it.
What's the question?
So the question becomes, do you have enough belief or faith that that could be? Or do you just give up on him and maybe take a first-round tackle, understanding that there are supposed to be as many as 2 and 3 rounds of quality offensive line prospects, specifically at tackle, which means you can swing tackle in the 3rd round if you really wanted one.
Alex,
that's my
go ahead.
strategy. Is just I have said for the last 2 years, we should just throw away a draft and be like, we're drafting only tackles, only offensive line for an entire draft. Like, we'll focus on other positions, other seasons. What if we just drafted all offensive linemen and then we fix the offensive problem there? Like, is that crazy? I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah,
like, what if we just took
crazy.
but we're gonna have our answer out of those 7 guys, right? The odds are good that you're gonna one of them will pan out.
I'd like to believe that at least 1 or 2 of those guys is going to be okay.
Line, you know?
Yeah. So you know what that tells me, Paul? It really rests in the hands of Brasillo. You want to hear him as an evaluator sit with those tapes and have a long look at Neal throughout his time with the Giants and really come to him, right? And then say, "What do you believe in this guy? Can you work with him at the right tackle position?" So in my opinion, I feel a lot rests on Brasillo as an evaluator, as the position coach, and to take it from there on what he believes.
Yep.
All right.
I agree.
I'll say this. I mean, I like both your perspectives, or all three of you. I don't think, as Paul alluded to, like the catch-22 is this: there's not enough talent in the building right now to improve the line. Pert, Lemieux, McKeithen, like they're not the guy. Whereas Zudo could be the guy, Neal could be the guy. At somewhere in this draft, you're gonna have to put, again, yes, evaluation, but you need to bring in new blood. We can't just keep recycling dudes, right? Like, I like Ben Bredesen. I like Azudu, but Azudu's a young guy, so Azudu probably doesn't count. But when it comes to like Pert and some of the Lemieux, like they can't stay. Like, we can't keep recycling it and then put all the pressure on the new offensive line coach and go, hey, fix this. It's not going to happen, because the minute he doesn't fix it, you're like, this guy stinks too. Like, it's somewhere along the line, they got to bring in a new guy that wants to play football. You know what I mean? Like whether it's a guard or a tackle, I don't know. And to answer your question, Paul, is I do not think Neal can play right tackle. I mean, and it's odd because I've never seen 32 teams whiff on a guy, right? I mean, he's a top 3 pick on everybody's draft board, but he just is so unathletic when it gets over his toes. He's consistently leaning and lunging like he just doesn't. Maybe it's because he went from left tackle to right tackle, but it just doesn't seem comfortable in the space. He is consistently over his feet. He is consistently lunging and hinging like a door frame at the waist. Like he just does not look comfortable, with a back step or a kick step. So I just don't know if one coach is going to unravel this guy and fix him.
Yeah,
But
I understand that. You know, Joe Shane says he believes he's still the right tackle. And he has made that very public. I don't know what Coach Brasillo is saying. I haven't met him yet, believe it or not. But I'd like to hear what he has to say about him. I don't think Neal is a guard. I don't. I think he is a tackle. He has been hurt, and especially ankle and knee injuries, which obviously impact your ability to be mobile at the spot. So that's part of what he's had to deal with. And then I'm not so sure that he took to the coaching from Bobby Johnson, to be frank with you.
yeah,
And so I don't think we've seen the best of Evan Neal. I think there's a lot more there. I'm inclined to still make him the starting right tackle and draft a swing tackle in the 3rd round. I'm inclined to do that, quite frankly.
okay.
And I think that McKeithen and Azudu don't deserve any negative pub because those guys have not gotten enough snaps to show what it is that they've got. And
I agree. I agree.
Evaluators love both their size, their strength, and their skill sets. It's just a matter of getting them on the field.
All right, so then here's the bigger question. I'm going to reverse the question to you. Let's put the quarterback situation aside. You're sitting at 6. Are you good? Are you looking at wide receiver, or are you looking at basically what would be alt at that point, but tackle in case you like someone else? But majority of the first guy off the board is alt, right?
Yeah.
Are you looking at 6?
Rashadu
Yeah.
from the Penn State kids, the next guy who's going to be on the board there.
Correct. Yeah. And he might be around like 11 or 12. But like, let's say you're staying at 6 and you're not trading out. Paul, what are the Giants doing? What are you doing? What are you doing at 6? If it's not, again, quarterback's off the table. Let's just, table that for this conversation.
Yes.
Do you going wide receiver or you going tackle?
Well, for me, if I had to make that pick there, I'd probably take a Dunze if he's on the board.
Okay.
Because I just told you, I'm going to take a swing tackle. Maybe even the 2nd round, I'd consider it. But I could even take one in the 3rd round. I think a Dunze could be a major league difference maker. And I understand the old school philosophy that says you don't take a wide receiver that high because you can get lucky with receivers later in the draft. Heck, Victor Cruz was an undrafted rookie free agent.
Yep.
Okay. So I understand that. I just think right now that where the Giants are with the 3 positions that we talked about, I don't think there's a pass rusher worthy of the 6th pick in this draft.
No.
Okay. I don't. And I think Alt is the only offensive lineman worthy of the 6th pick in the draft. And
Correct.
because I'm not taking a tackle at 6, all right, and I'm willing to draft a swing tackle later on, I'm going to wind up taking the best receiver who I think fits this room and will give them the most punch for their buck.
And you like Rome.
Dunze's the guy.
All right, so you like Rome. Alex, what are you doing at 6?
I mean, I feel like that's the unpopular thing now, but alt was what I liked. Just fix the offensive line. You can take the swing tackle in the 3rd round, but I just really like alt.
Chris?
Well, it kind of moves me to the 2nd round with those 2 picks, the one from Seattle. So I'm thinking guard in that 2nd round with one of those picks. So I'm probably going to go with Paul and maybe take a receiver because that's this team desperately needs if we're taking quarterbacks off the table. So I would go with the receiver.
And you know what? Because I get to host the show. I get to like throw out the whole thing and start over and say, I just want to, you know what, Paul, like as fans, we all come up with these crazy trade scenarios and we have fun with it. I don't do mock drafts. It's not my thing, but
I don't like him either. And you can trade, by the way, you can trade down. You didn't offer me the choice to trade down.
I know. That's
why.
fine.
Actually hold that pickup for bid.
I held that for myself, for my option, because I want, like, I like Shane, and I know like the whole instant gratification crew is out there, right? I want the Giants to go for it right now. I want them to do something really bold, right? I want them to do something really dynamic and bold. And there's only one of 2 things that are dynamic and bold. One is You give away the farm, you move up, and you take May, right? Which again, I'm just talking about bold. I know Alex is like, I'm just saying.
No, don't do that.
Right? I'm just saying bold. That would be bold, right? That would be bold, and everybody, that would be bold. Or, you trade out of the first and then come back in the late round, Paul. Like, we got 2 second-round picks, trade out, come back in the end of the draft, maybe get come in at 27, 28 or something like that at the end of the first, get more collateral stock, for picks and come back in later. I wouldn't be opposed to them doing that because I'm sure. Yeah. I really think I just want Shane to do something that's not traditional. Traditional. Just be bold because we've just seen enough losing. Just do something bold. Give us something to root for.
I mean, human nature. Is it damning for Shane to take another tackle at 6 when he took Neal 2 years ago? Is that incriminating for him because now his neck's on the line?
Too many tackles.
No, I don't think Joe Shane is going to pass on a tackle for that reason at all. I think if he does, it's because he believes there's a better pick to be made. Joe Shane's not going to be interested in perceptions. That's not the way he does business. That's not the way the Bills built their team.
But it's almost like you are admitting fault, right, Paul? It's like, well, Neal didn't work out. That was my pick. Now we're going to go back to the drawing board and take another tackle.
You know what? Here's why that's a great point, because there will be writers who will write that, but they'll be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, listen, who know, how about this, Chris? You pick Alt, right? And then let's knock on wood, Alt got hurt and Neal steps in and goes to the Pro Bowl. You can never have enough good guys. No. Yeah, maybe, you never have enough. How many pass rushers, those Super Bowl years? We had 9 pass rushers on the team. You had Tom, you had
Kiwi. They rotate. Yeah, they rotate them. No, they rotate him. But see, to your point, then Brasillo then says, you know what? I can work with Neal at the guard spot. Then to your point, that does make sense. That maybe he is best suited, even though he has the frame of a tackle. But I think it comes down to Brasillo as an evaluator and what he might believe.
Brasillo is going to have, I think, a lot of say here. And that's why it's very, very important that they got him in the building as quickly as they did and that he can give them an evaluation, because he's going to be the guy now charged with coaching whoever is in this building up to a level that they need. And again, you have to identify what is it that you have in the building first. That's the first thing you got to do. Second thing you got to do is, are you signing some free agents? Look, I wrote down, when you guys asked me to do this show, I got a piece of paper out, and I wrote down a couple budget offensive linemen who actually may not be so bad. Mm-hmm. Okay? I wrote down Hubbard. I wrote down Van Rotten. Mm-hmm. Elumanor from the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Who's also with Van Rotten. Okay? Hunt from Miami. Lamb from Miami. Who else did I write down here? It's kind of dark. Well, Kevin Zeitler, if he wants to come back at age 34, I don't know if he would. But I think those guys are probably somewhat economically friendly if you decided you wanted to hedge your bet, sign a veteran, right? And then not draft an offensive lineman, let's say, till the 3rd round. You can hedge your bet by maybe signing one of these guys at a reasonable cost.
And they have 2 second-round picks, so they can always get BB in the 2nd round. You don't have to draft a lineman in the 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. I mean, look at guys like David Deal, right? I mean, these guys were drafted in the 4th and 5th round. We don't have to spend all that capital on the first 2 rounds. Alex, we could draft a bunch of linemen. It just doesn't have to be with the first 2 picks.
Fair. I have a draft question for Paul. I think Malik Neighbors, is he a for sure top 10 pick? Because at 6, could we possibly move back 2 or 3 spots, maybe get a little bit of maybe get something else, and then take Malik Neighbors potentially? Do you think that would be
absolutely?
You
you have 3 for sure top 10 receivers: Harrison, Dunze, and Neighbors. Those 3 receivers are for sure going to be in the top 10. Everybody believes that. They're a consensus. Now, they're all a little different. Harrison is the full package. Everybody believes he might be gone by 4 or 5. Okay? So you're not getting him at 6.
Yeah.
But you should have an opportunity at picking one of those two receivers. Now, they're like apples and oranges. They're both supposed to be totally blue chip guys, but they have different types of skill sets.
100%.
Neighbors is the more quicks guy. Odunze is the more straight ahead speed with length guy. Which guy would you prefer? I will always go for the Spider-Man receiver. I want the bigger, longer receiver over the shorter, quicker guy. I will always be that way.
Odunze, if you watch some of his tape, and I got a personal friend that went to Washington, big Washington fan, so I've watched some games. He actually reminds me of a little bit of a Hakeem Nicks, the way the style he plays.
Yeah,
and I think, like I said, and I'm like, listen, outside of your Odell, I mean, Hakeem Nicks could have been if he didn't get hurt, right? I mean, might have been the best receiver we had in the history of the game. So a guy like Rome, to me, fits, right? Because he's big, he's good on the sidelines. Listen, they run bubble screens with Odunze at Washington. So he's got good straight line speed, and he's big and he's tough. He's great on the sidelines. Like I agree with Paul. I mean, as much as I know you're leaning on LSU, Alex, because they just churn out wide receivers, but I do lean on Odunze.
Well, I just seen Neighbors going later in the drafts than Odunze. So I was thinking maybe you trade 3 spots back or something. Somebody really wants Joe Alt. You could maybe get them to move up a little bit and then still get your guy.
Okay.
Neighbors could go before Odunze. It depends on the style of receiver that the GM wants in that spot. There will be some folks who will grade Neighbors higher, and they will want him more than Odunze. There's no question about that. It's an apples and oranges thing.
Yeah. Well, wait. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Combine's coming up February 26th through, I think, March 4th, right? Some people are combine junkies, right? Guys looking good in shorts. I think you guys always say every year they look good in shorts and a t-shirt, right? We won't know until yeah. In fact, I look forward to all the analogies that come out every year about these guys. It's fun how you guys paint these guys, and it's a ton of fun. I do like the combine, but we all know there's only one position everybody's looking at, and that's the quarterback. Everybody right now there's 6 QBs on the board, 5 QBs on the board, depending on who you are. Give us, Paul, some sense of what we should be looking for at the combine. Do we know if Joe likes any of these guys? I'm sure. I know you said you haven't talked to him recently, but what's the consensus in the building? Like, is there some type of vibe that, hey, whether we draft a quarterback this year or next year, like what's it feel like right now around the combine?
Well, I think 2 things you want to keep in mind before you even get into this discussion. Number one is that Joe Shane has made it very crystal clear that when Daniel Jones is healthy, he is the starting quarterback of the Giants. And to this point, the rehab has been going well, and there is certainly a possibility he'll be ready for week 1. So that's part of what you have to keep in mind. Now, the question that comes into play there is if he is not, what do you do? So there's a whole nother Rubik's Cube that you'll need to delve into as a separate question. The second part that you must keep in mind before you go here is that the Giants fully believe in doing due diligence on all of the top guys who are going to be in that top 10 range. So, for example, Joe Shane, ever since he's come to the Giants, he has personally scouted all those top guys, including quarterbacks, even though the Giants were not taking one the last couple of years. Okay. So you can't read anything into the fact that he has scouted Williams, the fact that he has scouted May, the fact that he has scouted Daniels. It's funny. I'm going to throw this to you a sec. You probably can't really see this.
I can see it. Yep.
All right. This chart, I put what I believe to be 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The top 14 quarterbacks who will probably be in this draft. who could be, I don't know, taken all the way down into maybe the 6th or 7th round, right? All the way down to Austin Reed and Devin Leary. Okay? I'm all the way down to those guys. And
Yeah,
I
you're
went
deep.
to the Parcells rules. You guys know the Parcells rules, right? The
Of course.
7 things that a college quarterback has to be if you want to consider drafting him to think that he's going to be your guy. And on my chart, I went through all the Parcells rules and marked down every single guy's stuff on the Parcells rules. And ironically, Mayan Williams would not make it.
Oh!
Go by the Parcells rules. Daniels is the first quarterback up who would qualify under the Parcells rules, who fits all of them. Penix also does, and so does Nix, who, by the way, would be my favorite quarterback in this draft.
Really?
Wow.
Well, because I disqualify the top 3. I'm disqualifying Williams, May, and Daniels because those are going to be the top 3 players picked, and you're not even going to have the chance to even think about them. Of those 3, May is clearly my favorite of those 3, and it's not even close. Aside from those 3, Bo Nix is my next favorite quarterback on the board.
Wow. I did not see that coming. Okay.
Now, having said all of that, you have to decide, all right, when you're looking at these quarterbacks, not only what you evaluate them to be if you want to even think about taking them, you have to decide what you think their value is around the league so that if you do want to make a deal, you know what you can squeeze out of somebody. Now, the Giants are at 6. If Williams, May, and Daniels are all gone, I don't think anybody is trading up to 6 to get the 4th quarterback taken in the draft.
Agreed.
Okay? Because none of these guys, in my opinion, are worth the number 6 pick in the draft after those top 3. Okay. So what you have to figure out is, as you're projecting your draft board and your top 6, you want to figure out if, in fact, you believe that all these 3 guys are really as good as everybody says, and if you really think those teams up there are taking them, or if one of those 3 might drop down to, let's say, 6. And not if you want them, but maybe if you want to dangle that pick as trade bait to somebody. So there are a lot of reasons why Joe Schoen personally scouted all the top quarterbacks. It doesn't mean he necessarily wants one. He just wants to have a full understanding of their value and the climate that he could be ready for if he's got to make a move. Having said that, you can now go forward with whatever quarterback question you have for me.
I just want to know, so if the top one, you guys can jump in here too. There's always, the Penix has got injury issues. Bo Nix has got arm issues. McCarthy's got, he's 200 pounds in the NFL. He's a little bit on the light side. Should we be paying attention to this stuff at the combine, or does it not even matter?
Well, the tape is always the most important thing. Okay. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's what those guys do on the field. The combine, I learned a long time ago from scouts who said to me, we will never downgrade a player for his grade at the combine. The only thing that will downgrade a player at the combine is if his interview goes bad, and that's his personnel file. If he's got trouble, and you know what I mean when I say trouble, I mean, like Laramie Tunsil trouble, right? Or something else off the field.
That worked out okay, though.
His personnel file.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't go to his playing grade. I was always told that the scouts will never knock down a player's playing grade from his combine performance. All they might do is go back and double check. If they see something that either they really like or don't really like, they'll go back and double check the film again. But they will never touch a player's grade on playing at the combine. What they may do is if in certain areas a player graded well on the tape and then at the combine he proves to have certain measurables far beyond what they believe, they might give him a half a grade bump. But you will never grade his playing skills on the downside as a result of the combine, which is why it's laughable that so many people put so much emphasis on the combine.
Do any of them, like, if any of them have any chance of getting that bump, what player would it be? What quarterback stands the best to get a bump because maybe he doesn't show well on a tape, or when you see him face to face, you're like, oh, didn't know that. Is there one guy?
One guy. Man, I'm looking
You know
at
how
this
they're-
whole list.
Because there is always that one. Alex, is there not one guy every year
I feel
after the
Well,
I would have
here's
thought it
what's
would be
gonna
Jaden
happen.
Daniels because he's going to have a freak combine, I feel like,
Right.
and people are
Right.
going to shoot him up the board.
But how much higher could he be shot? Everybody says he's a top 3 pick. How much higher
I
can
think
he
people
go?
will put him at number 1. I think there's going to be a lot of people that'll put him at number 1 if he has like a really fast 40 time, and that just happens after the combine. The combine messes with people's brains sometimes, and they're just like, I don't know. Like if you have a fast 40, I think you break everybody's brain, and you're just like, the Raiders are probably going to draft you. Maybe we can trade him to the Raiders.
Well, that did happen with
That's how that always
the defensive end from Georgia 2 years ago, right? He was supposed to be a top 5 pick, and he went number 1 after the combine. Everybody was all gaga about him.
See, what happens is it's not so much the scouts will change the playing grade, but you'll have GMs who will get enticed by the sexiness of the test scores. It doesn't mean the guy's playing grade changed.
Right.
His grade might have still been the same. Daniels may still be on most boards on the playing grade. Maybe he is the 3rd or the 5th or whatever best player in the draft according to the playing grade. But when he goes nuts at the combine, some GM is going to say, "Oh my God, his tongue's going to be hanging on the floor," and he's going to say, "I got to have him." That's what the
Darius Hayward
combine
pick.
does. It's false sugar, is what it
And
is.
who's the one guy, Paul? Who's the one guy that's going to be the full sugar this year? Who's the guy that's going to get the pop?
There's no question. He's right. Daniels is going to test insane at the combine. But it's very simple. If you don't want that style of quarterback, you don't want him.
Yeah.
Okay? I would never have Lamar Jackson on my team, ever. He's an MVP, but I would never want him on my team. He is not the style of quarterback I want. It's like in baseball, right? You got guys who throw stuff like Greg Maddux, and then you have the flamethrowers like Roger Clemens.
Yep.
Do you want Maddux to be your ace, or do you want Clemens to be your ace? Okay.
Yeah, and the Giants aren't built for Lamar Jackson.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
No, of course not. Of course not. So that's the thing. Okay, that's the thing. There are still dramatic differences in skill sets to where philosophies don't fit into a certain guy's skill set. It doesn't mean he's not going to be a great player. He could be a great player for someone who has that system and who loves that kind of skill set.
Chris, jump in here.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting to go to Shane Bowen. I'm ready to move on. But no,
The quarterback conversation.
Well, I'll throw one at you, Paul. Rattler, right, in the Senior Bowl. It seems like these Senior Bowl quarterbacks that do well and get the MVP. Does Rattler shoot up because he had such a great Senior Bowl and now he has a good combine? He could be a guy that kind of moves up.
Rattler passed all the Parcells tests, by
Okay.
the way. He checked every box.
Okay.
Just so you know.
All right.
I don't think Rattler, for me, right now, and I have to do much more deep dive. I have only done preliminary work on the quarterbacks on the tape. I'm not so sure that Rattler has a very high ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be, an okay NFL quarterback, but I think I'm not so sure about his ceiling. I don't know where his upside lands. I'm not sure that it's very high.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean he's not going to make the league, though, because I think he could make the league.
Yeah, he could be another Case Keenum, Simeon type guy, right?
And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
No. Need backups.
I do agree. I do agree with Alex. Daniels is going to just crush it. I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Dang, this guy could play."
He's gonna have all the sexy numbers, and every GM online is gonna put them on all their mock drafts at number
but again,
one.
if he's already number 3 right now, how much higher can he go? And if one of those other two teams doesn't want, one of those types of quarterbacks, they're going to stick with Williams and they're going to stick with May.
Well, but then they're going to be like, does he wear a dress? Does he wear a dress? Because then is that going to raise character issues? Because that was the whole thing I saw on Twitter this weekend. And then Daniels has that going for him. So maybe that'll put him over Williams in a bunch of people's minds.
It's why that now I'm going to be thinking about that for the next 2
internet
days.
brain. I'm trying to use internet brain. That's going to put somebody he's going to be number one in somebody's mock because he doesn't wear a dress, and that's going to be the entire logic. And he had a fast
Alex, last week, Shawnee and I did this thing, stupid things that stupid people say on Twitter. We just talked about the most obnoxious things that people say, and I'm always like, where do these people come from? I mean, they're not real, like the things that they say. So, all right, put a bow on it. Chris is dying to talk about the new coaches. Tell me, Paul, today's report was that Okereke is already knee-deep into his new coach, that they are literally like hanging out. Now, I'm exaggerating. They had a nice conversation on the phone, and Okereke was super excited about sharing some philosophy with the coach. Paul, tell me the story again, if you would be so kind, about why it took some time to get our defensive coordinator in the building.
Well, Shane Bowen was under contract to the Tennessee Titans. And when they had the exodus of Rabel, he was told, that is Bowen, hold your horses a second, because we're looking for a new coach and we're looking to fill out the new staff, and we're not sure how we're going to do this. So we're not firing you. We're not releasing you from your contract or your obligations. Now, they were nice enough to do professional courtesy and allow him to interview with the Giants. So he did interview with them, okay, which was very nice of the Titans to do. But they also told him, look, we want to let you know, we still have you under contract and we're still interested in you, and we may decide that we want you to stay. So that meant Bowen was not free to leave a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, while, you continue to read things like, oh my goodness, Dable's a tyrant. Dable's so hard to get along with. Nobody wants to come here. I mean, are you kidding me?
So what you're saying, Paul, is if I understand you correctly, the delay in hiring our defensive coordinator was not that everybody hates Dable and that no one wants to work for Dable. It was purely contractual from the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, but you don't expect anybody who wrote otherwise to admit that they were wrong, do you?
That's not fun.
Hell no. Yeah. It's not fun that way.
Don't you love the lack of accountability in this world?
Oh, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Go ahead, Chris. Keep asking your coach questions. I know you're into the coaches.
Yeah. So, Paul, by all accounts, Shane Bowen runs like a simplified type of defense. He runs anything from a cover 2 to a cover 5. A lot of twists and stunts up front. Under 25% blitz packages last year. But here's my question with Vrabel. When you watch Bowen the last couple of years, was that more of a Vrabel, similar to an offensive-minded coach, putting his stamp on it and not letting the offensive coordinator maybe do what he'd like to do? Was it similar with Vrabel? Was that more of what he wanted to do in terms of when you're looking at the Tennessee defense than Bowen really been able to put his stamp, his personality on it?
Here's the problem with that question. I haven't met Bowen yet. I haven't talked to him. I wish I had. I'm very anxious to meet him. I really am, because I want to talk to him. You're right about your assessment. It's a lot of zone. I told people this on BBKL the other day. He is much more concerned with deception than he is throwing extra heat. He's much more like Patrick Graham than Wink Martindale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. That's the best way I can describe it. And even though he comes from a, quote, 3-4 team, Harold Landry played along the front and was part of basically a 4-man front a lot.
Right.
Had his hand down, too, quite a bit, which is, to be frank with you, it's the Thibodeau role.
Mm-hmm.
Really, when you get down to it. Now, I don't know how many times Thibodeau's going to put his hand down with Bowen as the coordinator, but that's why it's funny. people don't understand this either, but it's a matter of semantics. The numbers in a defensive scheme, and I want to make this clear because it's a good point to make. Bowen was part of a 3-4 in Tennessee because the 3 identifies the defensive linemen who are on the front. But even though he ran a 3-4, he ran a 4-man front because the fourth guy was actually a linebacker who, in effect, was a pseudo defensive end. I know you guys understand that. I'm not so sure all the fans do.
Yeah, and I think, and by the way, the personnel that the Giants have, which you were alluding to earlier about Farrell from the 49ers, if he was obtained, he would be that guy, right? He'd be another guy that they could put with the hand in the dirt because right now the Giants don't have a personnel to run a 4-man front without like a guy like Ward. You know, you don't have that dynamic. You don't have that dynamic guy, right?
Correct.
So
I
get
is an unrestricted free agent, so I expect he's probably going to leave, and I would like someone to help set that edge. And Cleveland Farrell can be that guy who, on running downs or against power run teams, he can have his hand in the dirt on the edge.
Yep, running a 3-4, but having a 4-man front. Yep, I get it.
Yeah. Paul, last thing. The one that's alarming, and the players got to play, right? I mean, they only had 14 turnovers, I believe, on defense. Is that more because the defense themselves, the players didn't make plays, or do you lean that more on a conservative type defensive play caller and Bowen? Because that can get skewed too, because they only had 14 turnovers. Maybe more the players.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think it's fair to say if you look at their back seven, it was not filled with an overabundance of talent. In fact, their linebackers in particular, outside of Landry, who was playing on the front most of the time, I just think that their linebackers didn't have a lot of coverage abilities and were not very athletic and fast enough and quick enough and couldn't help a lot in trying to contain the passing game. And I was not overly impressed with the talent in their secondary either. I think the Giants' back seven is much more talented than Tennessee's. Much more.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that. Especially with the way especially the second half of the season, the way Pinnock, McKinney and Banks were playing. Yeah, I get it. That makes a lot of sense.
McKinney is an unrestricted free agent, though, so be careful about that. You may have to see Belton back there.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
it. It's his time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We did what we called the Rush Rumble, Paul, and we asked everybody on the show, who do they want back, Saquon or McKinney? And it was like, we love McKinney, but you can't pay $15 million for a safety. You just can't.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going to come in, but he's made it very public that he's going to be looking to back up the Brinks truck.
Yeah, I mean the tag alone is like 16 and a half. So it's going to be really tough. I know it hasn't been set yet. What's that, Alex?
It's going to go to Washington, just like
just like Landon Collins. All right, how about this one, Paul? Speaking of, good segue, like I said, McKinney versus Barkley. What's up with the Barkley stuff? It's always nonstop. It's always very polarizing. They love him. They hate him. He wants to be here, but gets it if he's not. There's the second year of a tag that's potential, but now you hear the Giants are kind of saying, or the rumblings are that they're not going to tag him. What's really going on?
Well, I think what you have to remember is that Joe Schoen himself said that he had plans to talk to Barkley's people at the Combine, right? You guys read that, didn't you?
Yep.
Well, you heard him say it?
Yep.
Okay.
We did. Mm-hmm.
Well, think about this for just a second now. Anything that's coming out now then is a bunch of you-know-what, because there's nothing going down. Barkley's been doing promotional tours. He went to the Super Bowl. He's done some commercials. He's done a whole bunch of interviews for products. There's no conversations going on right now between Barkley and the Giants. Shane himself said, I'm going to talk to his people at the Combine. So anything that's coming out now about the tenor of what may or may not happen is not based in anything, because they're not having conversation yet.
Yeah.
So how does anybody How does anybody come up with these ideas? I don't know.
You know, it's funny. Yep. You know, it's funny, Paul. The combine. You know, we're talking about the players, but it's just the fact. It's just the same with the agents and the general managers. That is their time to be together in one place, where they're cutting deals for draft, where they're cutting deals for free agents. Would you be interested in this guy? So that's the other side of it that you don't hear too much about until after the fact.
Correct. Now, here's what we do know based on what was said. Okay, we know how much Dable and Shane feel and think about Barkley. We already know that. Dable is a huge Barkley guy. We also know that Barkley has said in every one of his interviews, no matter what clips are taken out of context, and you will see those because you know how people love to do that. He also says in every one of those interviews, I've made it clear my priority is to be a lifelong Giant. I want to be a Giant for life, and I want to be a Giants legend, and I want to win. He always says that. But somehow, out of context, somebody takes another part of the sentence or the paragraph out and says, oh, you know, Barkley would consider playing for another team. Come on.
And by the way, Paul, if they let him go, of course he would have to consider playing for another team. He's not retiring.
Exactly.
Right.
So where's the news flash, Craig? Where's the news flash?
How about you? I mean, I know you got to keep a lot of that close to the vest, but you're allowed to give us your opinion. What do you think is going to happen?
All right. I believe what's going to happen. Saquon Barkley has said he wants to be here, and I believe him. I believe if you look at what he did during the course of this past season, how much of a leader he was. You guys have seen the stuff from the sidelines. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard of players talk about what a great teammate he is. I believe they want him to be here, and I believe he wants to be here. Usually, when both sides want a deal to get done, it gets done. Okay? That's as simple as I can make it. Now,
is your deal a tag, or is your deal giving him a 2-year?
It'll be a contract, I think. My opinion is it's going to be a contract. My opinion is it will not be a tag.
Okay.
That they will find a way to make a deal work. Now, I also believe, and again, Saquon Barkley himself has said he understands more about the business now after going through what he did last year. Okay? Which means he also realizes what the numbers are for running backs. He also was going to look at his season last year and realize that, you know, as talented as he is, he was not the number one running back producer in the league. So he can't possibly expect to be paid like that. Now, here's what could help the deal go down. All right? Part of the triggers that teams use when they sign a player to a multi-year deal, we all talk about incentives, right? We always talk about incentives.
Yep.
Well, there are game-by-game incentives that you can use, which protects yourself. But there's another trigger to these incentives called not easily reachable incentives, or on the reverse side, easily reachable incentives. In some ways, Barkley's season last year actually helps the Giants out because he didn't rush for 1,000 yards, and he was a little bit banged up, and it hurt his overall numbers. Now, do you remember the deal that he signed last year when they ripped up the tag was for 1 year, and if he had surpassed any of his previous year's statistics, he would start getting incentives kicking in to give him more money. You guys remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Well, guess what? Because Barkley wound up having a little bit less of a year this year, they can now put in another set of standards in his next contract that will be easier for him to reach, because last year he didn't reach those magic numbers.
Yeah, it was like 1,200, 1,300 yards rushing, something like that.
Bingo. So now if Barkley believes in himself that he's going to go out and rush for 1,000 yards, the Giants can start putting triggers in to the deal that will be lower than they were last year because he had a lesser season, which should make it easier for Barkley to achieve the triggers that will give him more money, that will add to whatever base they want to give him, that's going to lower their cap number. So it makes too much sense for this not to happen. I think the only way it doesn't happen is if Barkley's camp decides, you know what, as much as we really want to be here, we just really believe in our heart of hearts we can get a better deal in the open market somewhere. And you know what? We're just going to turn our backs on this. I have to believe that his reps and Barkley himself, after seeing the running back market this past year, have such a good grasp on those numbers that they won't do that.
You know what's going to be interesting, Paul, is you're going to see a game of chicken. Who's going to be that first running back to get that contract to set the market, right? So that's going to be another thing to look at and see where that market's set with a guy like Pollard or one of these other guys to set the market. But
well, the interesting thing is that Shane says we're going to talk to the reps at the combine. Well, remember, the tags have to be applied to a player by March 5th. The combine starts February 28th. So that gives them 1 week.
And it's
12, I think.
And the franchise, and isn't the salary cap firm on March 1st? So that they'll know what the actual tag.
The 5th.
Okay.
Free agency. When free agency opens on the 5th, when they close the door on the tags, that's where everything starts to really hit the fan.
Yeah, because the tag right now, I think, is like 12-1 or something for a running back.
Second year.
And again, that may fluctuate a tad when they figure out all the finances with the league. But so the Giants are going to have about a week, okay, before they decide if they're going to slap the tag on him. They'll have about a week to see if everybody can get together and make it happen. And I see no reason why it won't.
You know what's interesting too? If they don't tag him, now we've got 4 months of like because they may be working on a deal, right? 2-year deal, 3-year deal, whatever it is. But if they don't tag him, it's 4 months of we told you the Giants didn't want Barkley. It's over. I mean, it's going to be ugly to have to listen to that for a couple months.
Yeah, get it done.
Again, Craig, I think if it doesn't happen, it's only because Barkley and his people just decided, you know what? The numbers are too important than wanting to be here. If you believe both parties at face value, this will work out.
Okay. Alex, got something for me?
Real quick, Craig, they could put a non-exclusive tag, right, Paul? I mean, they can see if they can match it and see what the market calls for and give them the first right. So, I mean, I think that might be even more so than the actual tag itself.
So we can listen to Harbaugh pontificate how he wants them.
Well, they have the week. They have the whatever. They have that 1 week during the combine to talk about it. And if the tag does get hit on him, slapped on him, in all likelihood, it is probably just to extend the talking period a bit. Like you said, that they could do the non-exclusive.
It's a placeholder. Yeah, right.
Sure, they could. Yeah. I just don't understand why anybody would characterize any of their negotiations when they haven't had them yet. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, in the old days, Paul, they would say that doesn't sell newspapers.
That's true.
In this case, it doesn't get fixed.
Doesn't get the clicks,
exactly. Go ahead, Alex. Jump in.
No, I mean, I'm really just at the point where like I'm just ready for something to happen with that. Like it's just been talked about over and over and over again to where like I don't know what we do until anything happens. It's just the waiting game.
What about so if you say you're good wide receiver, you think Barkley gets done, you don't want to tackle. I mean, and this doesn't have to be a huge long thing because we could dive. We did a whole show on it 2 weeks ago about the 2024 free agent quarterbacks. Who's the backup quarterback? And Paul is we had lists. I had lists of it. I popped it up on the screen. I probably could still do it now. I have it in the system. There are 30 quarterbacks, but there's only 5 that can actually contribute on a high level if your quarterback goes down. Do these quarterbacks actually push Jones? Like, because you got guys like Chris. Who are the guys we were looking at? We were looking at Browning,
Minshew, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, there was a couple of them. Paul, do any of these guys, like, do they bring any of these guys that are nothing against Tyrod, but the guys missed 54 games over the last 6 years? Like, they need a guy healthy. So if Jones goes down, we need a guy that can play. So what's the conversation around the building around the backup QB?
Well, Joe has already said to everybody that they have to address it because as it stands now, you don't have 100% guarantee Jones is ready for week 1. You're hopeful, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know if Tommy DeVito is going to develop during the offseason. I mean, what are the odds of that? He's probably is what he is. And then to be honest with you, if you're only going to keep 2 quarterbacks on your roster and DeVito has to get snuck onto the practice squad, how much you want to bet somebody claims him? I don't think you're going to be able to sneak him onto the practice squad this year. I think he gets taken. So
I agree.
So, I think that's a problem. So, who was your number 2? The door is open for Tyrod Taylor if he wants to come back. I don't know if he will. I'll give you a name.
Guy's hurt
Rich
all the time.
Trubisky.
Yeah, just today.
That's today's big news.
Yeah.
Do we want that though?
Yeah. Now the Steelers decided to part ways with him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember that. He was in Buffalo. He knows the system. He knows Tierney. He knows Dable. And by the way, I would say at this point in his career, he's probably very, very cap friendly.
Oh, yeah, he would have to.
And he's a young veteran with some experience in the league. He's won some games. As your insurance policy veteran quarterback, that might be a name you might want to think about. Now, no one in the building has said that to me because I was not in the building today. So, he was not available. But I know he was supposedly cut today by the reports.
Yep.
I'm
that
just
is
saying
true.
that's a name I'm keeping an eye on.
Okay. Yeah, because like I said, we went round and round and round 2 weeks ago. I literally put on the screen all the quarterbacks, and Chris and I and Sean, one of the guys on the team, we only had like 4 or 5 guys that you could say, hey, if Jones is not playing, these guys can go out and win you a game. Like Minshew just showed you he can win 9 games, right? Yeah. Browning is
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Minshew's not going anywhere.
No.
And probably Browning isn't either now.
No.
I
don't think so.
So, you start getting a very small amount of guys that can step in and play. Because here's the thing that I think most of the fans are frustrated and angry with is we keep having, think about it. 5 years, Jones healthy for 2, 3, he's gone down. And every time we have a backup QB, Fromm, Glennon, Tyrod, these guys just get hurt or can't play. We're just hoping like how do the Browns luck out that Browning can play, right? Or how do you luck out that Minshew can play? Why can't the Giants have a guy that can play? Now, I'm not saying Tyrod doesn't have the ability. He's just an older guy. And he's got a history of injury. The Giants it's about time we have, enough walking under ladders and black cats and all the other things that have happened. Like if Jones goes down, which knock on wood that he does not.
I know.
But the backup QB's got to be able to play. The season is over every time he goes down.
It's crazy how the Browns went through 4 starting quarterbacks and Joe Flacco got them into the playoffs.
Veteran.
That's nuts.
Yes.
But it happened.
Yeah.
Yes,
you guys seem to be forgetting about our guy that just won an award for best celebration. All right, he won us on that. Was it a 3-game win streak? That was sick.
And Alex, I honestly, I don't know how I feel about Tommy DeVito. I don't. Is it possible? Here's the thing that I feel. I feel if I knew Daniel Jones was going to be okay, and maybe he'd miss a game. Let's just say they're thinking, he'll be back by mid-September. And it was maybe only a game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'd feel more inclined. But I don't know what Daniel Jones' availability is going to be yet. And if you don't know if he's going to miss a week, no games, or a month, do you think you know enough about Tommy DeVito to put him out there?
No, because when it got bad, it was just so bad with Tommy DeVito. That New Orleans game was just brutal with him when that kind of just fell apart. There.
Now, here's what I will tell you, though. In his defense, the game-winning drive against Green Bay was a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are some quarterbacks in this league who have still never produced in that spot.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it was a great job.
I mean, I had a scout tell me flat out, not a Giants scout, but an NFL guy, say to me, Tommy DeVito, did you watch the Packer game? And I said, yeah, I was there. Did you watch the last drive? Yeah. He goes, what was the problem? There was nothing wrong with that last drive. He did everything you would want your quarterback to do to win that game, and he got it done. And he looked damn good doing it, which is why I feel he'll never clear waivers. If you try to sneak him onto the practice squad, he's getting taken.
Yeah, he showed the moxie. Yeah, he showed the moxie that other teams want. Yeah.
He's a second stringer somewhere on some roster, I think.
Might be third.
That's why, they got to figure it out. But that's also one of the reasons why I wouldn't take a quarterback at 6, because I'm still with Joe on Daniel Jones, and if you want to tell me that you could grab Bo Nix at the bottom of the first round or maybe in the second round as a developmental guy for 2 or 3 years down the road, I'd be okay with that.
And then you are carrying 3 quarterbacks at that point. You're going to carry because you're going to have that veteran, you're going to have the rookie. So yeah, Paul, you would have 3 quarterbacks at that point too.
Well, what you might do, see, this is how it could change. Let's say you do that and you draft a rookie as a developmental prospect. Okay. Well, you're not going to try to waive him to the practice squad because he'll get taken. You can't do that. So it's got to be the 2. But on the practice squad now, if DeVito gets taken, maybe you sign a veteran to the practice squad. Okay.
What? Like who?
I mean,
you know what? Hang on.
I got it. Tannehill, Brissett, Trubisky, Taylor, Mariota, Darnold, Winston, those guys. Drew Lock.
Trubisky, I don't know. I don't know who that would be right now.
Where's your list? There you go. There's the list.
Oh, there's your list. All right. So now, Carson Wentz, I don't know. Sudfeld?
No, not.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is, you might be able to sign one of these guys to be your third on the practice squad. Remember, you can have veterans on the practice squad now.
Right.
And he could be sitting there, and then if Jones does go down, all right, you don't necessarily have to play the rookie prospect in waiting. You could easily wind up promoting the third quarterback.
Yeah, jump him for the veteran.
Right. So, I think there's so many people out there who are married to got to get a quarterback and got to be ready to play him right away. They're clouding their vision. They don't understand there are so many multiple ways you could go here.
And so many backups played last year. I think it was a record. At 1 week, we had 7 backups starting.
The number was, I believe, over 60 starting quarterbacks during the course of the season, which I think was 60 or 66. I forget what the number was. But it wound up being an all-time NFL record for one season.
You know what's interesting about that too, Chris, is that all the NFL does is baby and pamper the QBs, and they still go down. So it just proves that all these rules they put in place to protect the quarterback, it doesn't matter. Right? Don't hit them. Don't be around their feet. Don't accidentally hit them with your hand on a follow-through. All these rules in place to make sure all 32 QBs play, and what happens? You set a record for quarterbacks not playing. So it's a farce. All the rules they put in to take the physicality out of the game to protect the investment of these franchises doesn't hold water.
Well, I think, Craig, to your point, years ago, I mean, there were pocket passers, right? Double impact. Guys are moving around more. They're running around more. I feel like you're having more collisions because these guys are out of the pocket. Eli, he went down, right? He lived to fight another day a lot of times in the pocket.
Yeah. Oh, Darius is with you, by the way, Chris. Darius says, I'm open for Brissett. I'm like, no, heck no, please no.
He's steady Eddie. He could run an offense. He's not going to light it up.
But he ain't winning you nothing.
No, but he's not your starter. But he's a viable backup that could come in.
You know what, fellas? I hope that over the course of the next couple of months, certainly within the next month, but certainly in the next 2 or 3, that the Giants have a better gauge on where Jones's rehab is. Because the more optimistic they can be about his rehab it might clear up a little bit of their decision-making process.
And Paul, if he's not cleared for contact, he can't get on the field even on 7-on-7s. He'd have to work on the side until he's actually cleared for contact for any 11-on-11 type work. Even 7-on-7,
to be
right?
honest, if you've been to training camp practices,
Yeah.
contact is a thing of the past.
Oh, I know that, but it's just a word they use, and you saw that last year, even with the neck, they weren't doing much, but he wasn't cleared, so he couldn't get out there.
Right. They stick him with the red jersey and throws on the side, and I know what you mean, but
yeah,
the way the spring
Yeah.
practices and training camp practices.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different game, my friend.
Oh yeah.
Well, Paul, thanks for hanging out with us. Always a pleasure.
All right, fellas.
We're gonna talk to you again as we normally do, because I love the best part is right before training camp we get to go back to what we talked about this week and be like, we were right here, we were wrong there. Because now I'm really especially the Barkley thing. You gave me some hope because I want Barkley to come back. I think Alex wants him to come back. I think Chris wants him to come back. We just realized that it's an uphill battle, but at least you've given us some hope.
Well, look, fellas, the problem with all of these off-season moves specifically is that it's a lot like the weather report. Okay, they'll tell you the weatherman will say, right? No, I'm not being.
It's going to snow.
Well, the weatherman says it's going to snow, right? And then all of a sudden, some front comes in from Mexico and blows the high pressure system up to Canada, and then it doesn't. There are so many factors that can change. But the thing about it is, you have to put the timeline together. And again, when you understand that Shane and Barkley's reps aren't going to be talking until the combine, anything you read between now and then probably has absolutely no legs to it.
Unless you live in Houston and there is no snow.
There is not usually snow very often, no.
No, yeah.
Like
So,
once every couple years.
well, Paul, I'm going to let you go. It's getting late. I appreciate you hanging out with us. We will definitely tap you back in for some more insight. Appreciate everything. Guys, Wednesday, Thursday, Rush Hour draft show coming up with Spartan Mike and Truth. They're going to be going through whoever knows what they go through. It's just all for you draft junkies. I can't stay up that late. I got to go to bed. So make sure you tune in to Rush Hour. We'll see you guys next Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys soon.